Hi brothers and sisters in Christ. I hope the Lord is blessing you on this beautiful day. Today I'd like to do something a little bit different. I'd like just to give my testimony. Basically, I'm going to start from the beginning. My folks are actually from Germany. They came here about 40, 50 years ago on a boat. My father was a wallpaper hanger and a painter by trade, and so that they actually wanted my folks to come over because they had a trade. So anyway, they stopped off at Sydney, I believe, and the first people to greet them there was the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They helped them with accommodation, food, blankets, etc., whatnot. And so therefore, when Mum and Dad found a church here, that's obviously the church they went to, and that's the church that I was brought up in. And I'm very thankful for that now, even though I've come out of that church. I'm very thankful for that now because of the deep study of the Old Testament, the great roots, and just a lot of the old, I suppose, what we would call the legalistic sides of it. I was really blessed that I was taught all of that and to really be fundamental on rules and regulations. And I know we're not under the law anymore, but it was good to have that upbringing of absolute sincerity. You were either in it or you weren't. You won't find too many Adventists that are either, like, lukewarm, put it that way. Anyway, so when I was about 7, the extent of my childhood and church was maybe 3 or 4 times I maybe went to church with my dad. Didn't really have anything to do with church. Always loved God. Mum was always very good with me and telling me that, you know, Yeshua, Jesus, was my best friend and I could always rely on him. So I always had that as a kid, which I'm very thankful and blessed for. Now, I remember about 7 years old, I was at a friend's place and she had horses, and I absolutely loved horses. And she had bridles and saddles and stirrups and all the latest stuff. And I remember sitting on the couch thinking, I wonder why she has all this stuff and I don't. And this thought came into my head, and it was, I wonder if she believes in God. So I asked her, do you believe in God? And she's like, no. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, then I'm not going to believe in God. And the very instant I thought that, I got up out of that couch, ran as fast as I could home, and all the way home, I'm like, I'm so sorry, Lord, I love you, I've always believed in you. And that's at 7. I had no church experience. I had no anything to influence me to feel like that. So, you know, the Holy Spirit resides with you. I think you're chosen from the beginning of time, and you've just got to find your way back there. So that was my first real experience in knowing that God was a huge part of my life and always will be. You know, I go on to high school. I'm pretty much sure, like everybody else, get into the drugs, you know. Marijuana was absolutely huge in my life. I started smoking it when I was about just before I turned 15. Alcohol, never really a big drinker, but obviously when you're young, you just drink and smoke and do all those things. And then I met the father of my 2 eldest boys. He was a few years younger than me, and he got me into speed. Not only did he get me into speed, now I'm being very open and I'm confessing my sins here, and I know they're forgiven, that's why I can do this, but not only did he introduce me to speed, but we injected it. And I wasn't even 18 then. So therefore started a drug habit, a very bad one, for probably 6 months to a year. And I'm talking real bad. We knew the cooks, we knew the people who, who made the stuff, and it wasn't good. And anyway, so through no sleeping for weeks on end, no eating, whatever, it got the better of us, and we had to move back home. And I remember having all my belongings and all of my, pretty much all my belongings in the car, going to my parents' place because we'd pretty much hocked everything in a pawn shop to pay for our habit. And so we're at my parents' place because we had nowhere else to live. And I remember, as I was getting stuff out of the boot, looking up into the sky and saying, God, there is no way that I can give this up. There is no way. The withdrawals were so bad and so hard. I mean, you can have a withdrawal from cigarettes, you can have a withdrawal from, alcohol, but try having a withdrawal from, like, a full hardcore drug like speed. It's not pretty. But anyway, so I'm saying to God, there's no way I can do this, Lord. I said, the deal is, you want me to get off this, then you take my withdrawals away. I'm not lying, and that's why I want to look you in the eye and show you myself that he did. Literally 24 hours, the next day, no withdrawals. And that is only a miracle, and only from the grace of God. So, fast forward a little bit, I fall pregnant with my first child, who's nearly 18 now. And I wasn't doing anything then. Obviously, we weren't smoking, drinking, whatever. I went into super mum mode. I was a very young mum. I was about 19. And so that was good. But then when I had him, after I had him, I started getting back into the weed again. Weed has been my vice on this earth. I loved it. Like, I would justify it. I would go on about the medicinal values of it, just to justify, oh, boy, I was an advocate for it. And the funny thing was, all through my life, at parties and things like that, I'm sure the Lord uses you, because every time I was really super high or really super drunk, I remember at parties I'd be sitting there telling people about Old Testament stories. So, David and Goliath and the giants and Noah's flood, and people would be like, what? Wow, this is so fascinating. So, God has got an awesome sense of humour, and he uses where you are to, to minister to other people. So anyway, I had my second child by then, and still smoking weed. Like I said, it was such a vice. It was all day, every day. Always wanted it just to be on the weekends or whatever, but it just never worked out that way. And then anyway, so when my second child was about 3 months old, I ended up having a bleed on the back of my brain. I lost all my motor skills. I couldn't walk, I couldn't speak, I couldn't talk, all sorts of things. And I know what it's from today, and it's from the Gardasil vaccine that I had. I nearly died from it, and that's why I'm an advocate on looking into vaccines and doing a bit of research for yourself before you put anything into your children. Anyway, another story. So I got really, really sick, and I remember sitting in the hospital bed, and the doctor's telling my parents, okay, your daughter is going to die. You have to say you have to say goodbyes tonight. And in my head, I'm like, hello, I'm 100% here, but I could not get the words out, and it was horrifying. And the Lord really puts in your place sometimes. Anyway, I got married to this person, and within a year, we'd been together for 8 years, mind you, and within a year, he just cheated on me. I don't know how many times he did it throughout the time that we were together, but the whole town was telling me. Even his boss was telling me. And I didn't want to believe it, because I'm a very trusting person. Like, I just trust everybody. You call me gullible, but yeah, that's just me. So anyway, finally, the truth comes out, and we separate, and he gets with another woman, and I found out yet again from the grapevine that they're going to get married. So as you can see, I was a kid when I met him. I had 2 children. And then I felt like a kid when he left, and I'm like, well, what do I do? I'm an adult. I'm an adult, but I feel like a kid. I don't know what to do. So I hit the bottom of the barrel. I remember going back to Mum and Dad's place, and there was a Bible, and I opened it for the first time in my life. And I remember still to this day, this is in 2009, it lands on perfect love casts out all fear. And that was just exactly what I needed. So that was about October of 2000, October 2008. By January 2009, I was rebaptized. I just was on fire. I was on fire. And then after I got baptized, I took my two boys. They're only, maybe 5 and 3. And we went traveling. Never drove with a caravan, but just was like, no, I have to get out of here. So we travelled all up and down the coast, and I was ministering to the public. It was the best time of my life. Like, we would pull up at caravan parks, and I'd just be able to have talks with regular people about, the love of Christ. And it was interesting to see how people had hated God and not realised that they hated him for no reason, but it was for what people had done, but they were blaming God. And, working through those things with people and making them realise that God's not the fault was really, really a wonderful time, a blessed time for me. So, anyway, I come back after about 3 or 4 months because the car started, cracking up. I come back, and long story short, I met the now father of my children and of my other 4 children, and I got back into the weed again. And so starts the thing again. I loved that weed. My goodness. And if there's this is the reason I'm making this, because I know so many people have a problem with marijuana. So many people have a problem, and it's one of those drugs that is sort of accepted, so that makes it even harder to give up. So where was I? Okay, yep. So we're getting together and smoking weed, and pretty much. I didn't really have a lot to do with God. I've never not loved him, or never not denied him, or never denied him rather, ever. He's always been in my life, but there's many times where I don't have a relationship with him. And so I had this awesome relationship when I was traveling, but then when I came back and met him, and I got back in the world again. It's not his fault, it's my fault. I got back in the world again and let temptation come back to me. And and so 2 kids later, we started having a lot of trouble because I got called back to God really full on in about 2013. And I remember seeing this video on YouTube showing all the things that are going on in the world, the earthquakes, the floods, the things. And all of a sudden it came back to me. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's the end of time, So I'm like saying to my partner at the time, I'm like, the world's going to end. We've got to go around and tell people, rah, rah. And God love him. He supported me. And we left and we travelled. And, I was able to fulfill that desire of wanting to tell the world that the world was ending and make right with God and all that. But that broke us up in the end because from his point of view, I was fanatical. And from my point of view, I see it as I love God so much that it makes everybody else really uncomfortable. I've been like that my whole life, and that's why I really haven't had too many friends, because my love for God is like really literal. And I don't know whether it scares people or people don't want to confront their own walk with the Father, but I love him so much that he is literally just here all the time. I'm just yapping with him and talking to him like a normal person, and I don't know. I can't understand people. You either love God or you don't, and if you, I don't know, just the gift of Yeshua dying for us. Like, here's a tip for you. For those of you who are struggling, you're like, oh, I really want to give this temptation to sin up. I really love the Lord. Watch the movie Passion of the Christ. I know a lot of you say, it doesn't matter whether whoever made Mel Gibson or whatever. All that aside, if you watch that movie and you can watch the Messiah being brutally beaten and scarred and whipped and mocked, if you can watch that and not feel from the very depths of your heart absolutely heartbroken and just torn, then you need to adjust your life to want to be like that, to want to feel the absolute sadness. And if that doesn't change your life, I remember watching that movie and all my earrings, because I had that piercing, I had a nose, I had my eyebrow, I had my ears, I had my belly button. After I watched that movie, I literally took it all out. And I fell on the floor weeping. I'm like, how on earth do I put holes in my body when, you know, you have holes in your hands for me? So if you need a motivation, watch that movie, because it really shows the rawness of what our Saviour did for us. And I believe the actor who played Christ in that movie, I believe he's got an awesome testimony too, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, so I got right into the September 23 thing back in 2014 when the blood moons were happening. Oh my goodness, did I? I would have given my life for it. I believed it that much that I would have given my life right then and then there for that teaching. So I've been watching for the rapture for nearly 3 years now. Oh, nearly 4 years now. Oh, goodness me. But, you know, the Lord knows that I'm a very impatient person, and I think that's why he lets me have breaks, and I go back into the world. I always love him, but he lets me have these breaks because when I get into God, boy, do I get into God. Like, I'm so tired, and you can see here, I sleep probably 4 or 5 hours a night because he's just downloading stuff, and I love it. Like, if you could put money, drugs, all the good things on this earth into a bowl and then say the wisdom of God in this bowl, oh my goodness, I'd be gobbling it up. When God gives you wisdom, I don't know if any of you feel like this, when you get something from the Holy Spirit, it is like, there's not even a word to explain the feeling of just absolute contentment. This is all I need. This is everything that I've ever wanted, is that wisdom from God. So anyway, so we've broken up, and that was quite sad. I mean, I'll tell you how bad it was, because I'm trying to be honest with you. It got to the point where my partner felt that I was going to harm my own children because I wanted to be in heaven so much. So effectively he thought I was going to kill my own children so that we could all go to heaven together. Now that, to any mother, is a crushing. It's taken me many years to forgive him for that, because I sat on the bed and asked him 3 times, looked him in the face, looked him in the eyes, and said, do you really believe that? And he said yes 3 times to that question. And that was the moment I was like, okay, I truly don't love you anymore. So he took my 2 kids, the ones that he thought I was going to take, and he moved to Toowoomba. And anyway, so I don't know, the rapture didn't end up happening in 2016, and I was devastated, and I'm like, oh no, what have I done? I've lost my family, this rapture mustn't be real, and, you know, I've lost everything for the sake of this stupid doctrine, blah, 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 blah. So I, said out loud, I don't believe in the rapture anymore. I've always believed in God, okay? But I didn't believe in the rapture anymore because I just thought it's just turned my whole world apart. Even my parents were like, that's, stupid. You shouldn't be believing in stuff like that. We've got to go through the tribulation. Mind you, Adventists, they believe that we actually have to go through the trial. They think that the Sunday will be the mark of the beast. People who worship on Sunday, that pretty much is everybody. So, and also... And what I try to say to my mum is stop looking for the Antichrist. Stop looking. God, Jesus always tells us, look up, your redemption draweth near. So, anyway, so I moved back to Toowoomba pretty much a year ago, and a couple of months into it, guess what? We pick up the weed again, and it becomes an incredible dependency once again. Can't live without it. Absolutely terrified. Know that I want to give it up all the time, but my mind just is terrified to give it up. Absolutely terrified. Like, I can't explain it. To someone who's never had an addiction like that, you'll never understand. But for someone who has, you know. I'm like, I'm going to be a bad mother. I'm going to lose my patience with my children. Guess what? This was even a justification from me. I used to think that the Lord revealed things, and he does. He takes you where you are. But he used to reveal so much to me when I was smashed, right? Basically, I told myself that, the marijuana is opening up my mind so I can accept more from the Holy Spirit. I mean, what kind of justification? The devil is smart. So this is where I'm coming to you now. It's only been about 2 weeks now. 2 weeks. The first couple of videos that I started making at the beginning of this year, I was high. I'll be honest with you, I was high. And I'm a, what do you call it? A functioning drug addict. I was a functioning drug addict, meaning I could be high off my dial and just be like a normal person. It wouldn't affect me in a way where I'll be like, oh, it's all off my face, all that kind of stuff. So it was another struggle that yet again I had to conquer, and this time I knew it was for real. Like, this time I will never ever give it up, and never ever get back onto it. I mean, so I kept saying, all right, after New Year's will be the last bit that I have, and rah. Anyway, come past New Year's, there was more left in the bag, so I'm like, all right, at the end of the week, I'm going to give it up. And just the horrific games of, the little devil and the little angel sitting on your shoulder, that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And eventually I forced myself to watch Left Behind dreams and tribulation dreams, to force myself to, am I practicing what I preach? Do I really believe that I could be left behind? And I had to snap myself into it. I had to smack myself into it and say, come on, who is your God? Who is your God? Is it this green stuff that is polluting the holy temple? And that was my biggest calling point, is because I read the scriptures. It says, you're supposed to be holy. This is the temple that God resides in, and I couldn't face thinking that I was blowing smoke into the temple of God. So you have to be firm with yourself. You have to get up yourself. You have to say, enough is enough. I love my God. I love Yeshua. I love the gift that he did for me, and I believe it and I confess it. You have to tell yourself this over and over and over and over again. Because remember, he says, don't let any doubt creep in, because it's like a wavering boat, goes this way and that way. The second you let that little bit of doubt in, look out. So, brothers and sisters, basically, long story short, my severe addiction was with weed. And I'm talking morning, and then, I wake up. So I used to get up people, I think, how can you smoke a cigarette when you get out of bed with the coffee in the morning? It's so disgusting. But I was doing the same thing. I was getting up, I was having a bong, at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd have one at 8, and at 9, and at 10, and at 12, and then, all the way to bed, and then I'd get up in the middle of the night and have it. That's an addiction, okay? So don't think it's just, a little something. There's a lot of chemicals and stuff in the stuff they have now too, which your body has to process, and that's why it's double as hard to give up. So, for anyone out there, brothers and sisters, if you are experiencing any trial, whether it's a sexual sin, whether it's okay, can we be honest here? Hi, back again. I just got cut off before my son came around the door, and it was a little bit of an inappropriate subject for him to hear, so I'm just going to make this last little bit outside. Basically what I was going to talk about was the sin of masturbation. Quite often we think, and I thought too, I wasn't sleeping around, I wasn't getting with guys, I was justifying it again to the Lord, saying, hey, if if I do these things to myself, then I'm still being pure. But the thing was my thoughts. It allowed my thoughts to go to places that wasn't godly. And and every time I would get this thing coming, the verse of the Bible where it says, if your hand causes you to sin, then cut it off. This is my bubba. You'd rather enter heaven with one hand than into hellfire with both. So basically, I just wanted to bring that up and draw attention to that, because a lot of sins that we do are unconscious sins, but really they're not. We're very aware of the dangers that letting a thought ponder into a thought can become fruition, and that's the point I'm trying to make. So whatever sin it may be, whether it's drugs, sexual sin, thought sins, oh my goodness, anything that can take your mind off God and onto wicked, evil, or earthly things, we really need to reevaluate our lives, brothers and sisters, and make sure that everything we do is in the glory of God. So I just wanted to leave it with that. I just wanted to add that little bit at the end, and I know it was probably too much. Finding children. Okay, I'm going to leave it. I better go before something breaks loose. Okay, I love you. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.